Look at your hair for a moment. It might seem like one of the most ordinary parts of your body, but hidden inside a single strand is a story that began hundreds of thousands of years before you were born. In fact, scientists believe the shape of your hair may hold clues about how your ancestors survived some of the harshest environments on Earth. That means the difference between straight hair, loose waves, tight curls, and dense coils may not have started as a fashion statement or even as a beauty trait. It may have been the difference between absorbing more heat from the sun or staying just cool enough to protect the most important organ in the human body. And that's only the beginning, because the more scientists study human hair, the stranger it becomes. Why would humans lose most of the thick fur covering their bodies, yet keep so much hair on the one place where overheating could be the most dangerous? Why does one species produce hair that grows in completely different shapes? Was it climate? Was it chance? Was it genetics? Or is every strand on your head quietly preserving an ancient survival strategy that most people never notice? To answer those questions, we first have to solve an even bigger mystery. Why did humans keep so much hair on the head at all? Compared with almost every other primate, humans are surprisingly hairless. Chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans are covered in thick fur, yet humans appear almost naked. At first, that seems like a disadvantage. Fur protects against cold, insects, and sunlight, so why would evolution take it away? The answer lies in something humans do better than almost any other mammal. We sweat. As our ancestors began spending more time walking long distances across hot landscapes, thick fur became a problem. Sweat can only cool the body if it evaporates from the skin, and heavy fur traps heat while slowing that process. By losing most of their body hair, early humans became remarkably efficient at staying cool, allowing them to walk, gather food, and even hunt for hours under an unforgiving sun. That ability may have helped shape the success of our species. But evolution didn't remove hair everywhere, and that exception turns out to be incredibly important. The one place where humans kept a thick covering of hair was the scalp. That isn't a coincidence. Beneath the scalp sits the brain, an organ that weighs only about 2% of your body, but consumes roughly 20% of its energy. Every second it generates heat, and unlike muscles, the brain doesn't cope well with overheating. Imagine walking for hours across an open African savanna with no hat, no trees nearby, and the midday sun beating directly onto your head. Even a small reduction in heat reaching the scalp could make a difference over thousands of generations. In other words, the hair on your head may have survived because the brain underneath it was simply too valuable to leave exposed. But keeping hair is only half the mystery. If scalp hair was so important, why didn't evolution settle on one perfect design? Why do some people have silky straight hair while others have loose waves, springy curls, or tightly coiled hair? If there were one best solution, shouldn't everyone have the same hair? That question puzzled scientists for years, until researchers began looking at hair not as a fashion feature, but as a natural engineering system. One of the most fascinating discoveries came from studies that used thermal models of the human head to test how different hair textures behave under strong sunlight. The results were surprising. Tightly curled hair appeared to reduce the amount of solar heat reaching the scalp more effectively than straight hair. At first, that seems backwards. Many people assume more tightly packed hair would make the head hotter, but its shape creates something clever. Instead of lying flat against the skin, dense curls lift the hair away from the scalp, creating tiny pockets of air. Those air spaces act like natural insulation. The hair blocks much of the sunlight while still allowing heat to escape. It's a bit like standing under the shade of a tree instead of wrapping a thick blanket around your head. One blocks heat while allowing airflow. The other traps everything. For early humans living in regions with intense sunlight, that small advantage may have mattered. If tightly curled hair reduced heat reaching the brain, it could also reduce the amount of sweating needed to stay cool. Less sweating meant conserving precious water, something that could be life-saving in hot, dry environments. Suddenly, hair stops looking like decoration and starts looking like survival equipment. Something we style today may once have been protecting our ancestors every single day. Of course, that's not the whole story. Human evolution is rarely that simple. Hair texture isn't a perfect map of climate, and it certainly doesn't tell the complete story of someone's ancestry. Human populations have migrated across continents for tens of thousands of years. Groups separated, mixed together, adapted to new environments, and carried their genes into entirely different parts of the world. Some traits spread because they offered an advantage. Others became common simply because a small population carrying those traits grew over time. Chance, migration, and natural selection all work together, making human evolution far messier than a straight line from one environment to another. Take straight hair, for example. It is especially common among many East Asian and Native American populations, and scientists have identified several genetic variants associated with thicker, straighter hair. Some researchers think these traits may have been helpful in colder climates by providing different insulation around the head. Others believe population history and genetic drift played a major role. The truth is that scientists are still investigating exactly why straight hair became so widespread in certain populations. Evolution rarely gives us one simple answer. The same is true for wavy and curly hair. These textures appear in populations across the world, often within the same family. There isn't a neat evolutionary ladder where hair gradually changes from straight to coil. Instead, human hair exists on a spectrum with countless variations in between. Nature doesn't like perfect categories nearly as much as humans do. The reason for that diversity begins beneath the skin. Every hair grows from a tiny living structure called a follicle. Although follicles are incredibly small, slight differences in their shape dramatically change the hair they produce. A follicle that grows more symmetrically tends to produce straighter hair, while one that curves or grows unevenly can create waves, curls, or tight coils. The hair fiber itself also matters. Straighter hair often has a rounder cross-section, while curlier hair is usually more oval or asymmetrical. It's similar to the way a ribbon curls when one side is stretched differently from the other. The science is far more complicated, but the basic idea is surprisingly similar. Even more fascinating is that there isn't a single curly hair gene. Hair texture is influenced by many different genes working together. Some affect the shape of the follicle. Others influence hair thickness, growth angle, diameter, and the microscopic structure of each strand. That's why siblings can inherit noticeably different hair, why a child's hair sometimes changes during puberty, and why hormones, aging, health, and even certain medications can gradually alter hair texture throughout life. Your hair isn't completely fixed from birth. It's a living biological system that continues responding to your body over time. And then there's something biology alone can never explain. Hair is also culture. Long before cities, governments, or written language, humans were cutting, braiding, shaving, decorating, and styling their hair. Across different societies, hair has represented identity, status, beauty, age, spirituality, grief, celebration, rebellion, and belonging. Sometimes changing a hairstyle meant entering adulthood. Sometimes it marked mourning. Sometimes it became an act of resistance. A feature that may have started as protection against the sun slowly became one of the strongest symbols of human identity. Perhaps that's why hair feels so personal. It isn't just made of dead protein growing from your scalp. It's one of the first things people notice about you, and one of the oldest connections you have to your ancestors. Hidden behind every strand is an extraordinary story involving sunlight, climate, migration, genetics, biology, and thousands upon thousands of generations of human history. So, why is human hair so different? Because evolution never searched for one perfect hairstyle. Instead, the same human species spread into different environments, encountered different challenges, mixed with different populations, and accumulated different genetic variations over immense stretches of time. Straight hair, wavy hair, curly hair, and tightly coiled hair are not mistakes or competing designs. They are different chapters of the same human story. The next time you brush your hair or look in the mirror, remember that you're not just seeing part of your appearance. You're looking at one of the oldest surviving records of human evolution, one that has been growing, adapting, and telling its story for hundreds of thousands of years, one strand at a time.